Hello, welcome to the video. Today we're going to be going over mixing your vocals. This is what the vocal sounds like before.
Look into my truth, transform and turn into my own Medusa to conclude a lucid proof of moving through my life. Look into.
And to note, this is down minus 1.5 decibels, and we do have a decent recording. So we're going to be starting from there. If you guys do want to go over how to record your vocals, etc., I can do that in another video. Just let me know. Though to begin, this is the before that you heard, and this is the after.
Look into my truth, transform and turn into my own Medusa to conclude a lucid proof of moving through my life. Look into.
Now, where I like to begin is with an EQ sweep. I call it a sweep because you're essentially sweeping the frequencies with a band with a very tight Q to find those, I call them mosquito noises, though they're essentially very resonant frequencies in your recording that sound like when a mosquito goes by your ear. So for example, if we look at this one, you hear that? That doesn't sound good at all, so we just find those and duck them, typically anywhere from 1 to 3 decibels. In this case, I guess I did minus 3.33. It's not on all of them. Some I did more. Always do it to taste, though typically you don't want to do too much. Like, you don't want to dip them this much, just enough where it makes a difference and helps your vocal sound more crisp. Some recordings you might use all the bands and then another EQ. Others you might have one, depends on your recording and how it was, how background noise is, if the room is treated, etc. So we want to start with a sweep. From there, I like to go into an EQ and just shave off pretty much everything under 100 hertz, because that's all the boxy stuff that you're not really going to want, but you don't want to shave off too much to the point where your vocal has no body. You will find with male and female vocals, male vocals will typically not have as much shaved off. Female vocals, you might even go up to the 150 range. That's because female vocals don't have as much bass to them. So we'll shave off here, and then I like to, or in this case with this particular vocal, I boost the mids a little bit. I say a little bit, but it was about 2 decibels. Typically with boosting, you want to boost wide, as we can see here. And then with cutting, you want to cut small. You don't want to cut wide because it'll take too much out of your vocal. In this case, I did about here, 2, almost a 3 Q. That's about as wide as you want to get when you cut. But the reasons why I cut at 3K and 240 is that's where I found a lot of harshness in the vocal. For example, if we turn off the EQ,
Look into my truth, transform and turn into.
and then if we turn it on,
Look into my truth, transform and
sounds a
turn
lot
into.
softer. Here I'll solo just the vocal,
Look into my
and we
truth.
turn it off.
Look into my truth, transform and turn. Look into my truth, transform and turn into my own Medusa to conclude a lucid proof of moving through my life. Look into my truth, transform and turn into.
So it sounds a lot smoother, a lot more silky, I guess we'll say, and a lot more bright because we boosted here. Now after I do this, because we boosted the highs, I like to add a de-esser. Now in this case, I'm using the Waves de-esser in mono. Would probably recommend using the stereo one, though in this case I use the mono one. Though, yeah. So we're using the Waves de-esser on the male S preset, and I dipped it to the point where we're getting about 6 dB, minus 6 dB or more of de-essing.
Look into my truth, transform and turn into my own Medusa to.
I would recommend going anywhere from 6 to 10. Yeah, just to your taste, but we just want to calm those S's so they don't come through really sharp.
Look into my truth.
After that, typically on a vocal, I'll do 2 compressors. On this one, I just did 1. Again, it was for taste, though typically I'll do 2, 1 with a faster attack and a bit of a slower release, not so much gain reduction. I'd probably do 2 to 3 just to kind of tame the dynamics, and then later on I would do another compressor, which is what this one would do, with a slower attack in a release, really to taste, but just to really like kind of squish everything together a little more to keep the whole vocal even. But in this case I just did one compressor. Again, you can do that to taste. Typically I do two, as I mentioned, but this is what this one sounds like. We're doing about 5 dB of gain reduction. Actually need to, yeah, we're doing about 5 dB of gain reduction, and just putting the makeup gain back to keep everything level.
Look into my truth, transform and turn into my own Medusa.
If we turn it off,
Look into my truth, look into my truth, transform and turn into my own Medusa. To conclude a lucid proof of moving through my life.
so it's just keeping everything level. And then from there, what I like to do sometimes, I'll do either an OTT and adjust the amount to whatever you want. If you have it all the way up, it's going to be super harsh and not going to sound good at all. And I also turn off the low band since we're EQing it out. Though, yeah, so I do an OTT. This is what it sounds like with it.
Look into my truth, transform and turn into my own Medusa.
And if we turn it off,
look into my truth, transform and turn into my own Medusa. To conclude a lucid proof of move.
Just add some saturation, some more life to the high end of the vocal, and I turn it down again to taste. But typically if I do a OTT, it's anywhere from 10 to 25%. I chose 25 because it sounded better with the instrumental in my eyes. And then from there I do a little more with the sausage fattener, so just 9%, nothing too crazy. Then I added some color here, about 26, and I noticed it increased the gain a bit, so I just ducked it a little to 1, and this is with the sausage fattener.
Look into my truth, transform and turn into my,
and without.
Look into my truth, transform and turn into my own Medusa. To conclude a lucid proof of moving through my life. Look into my truth.
So it just adds a little more oomph to it. And then since we added more saturation, more dynamics to the overall vocal, again, the highs are there, coming back, so I added another de-esser to make things a little bit less harsh.
Look into my truth, transform and turn.
And this one's doing a bit more. Again, we have it around 6 to 10.
Look into my truth, transform and turn into my own Medusa. To conclude a lucid proof of moving through my life. Look.
And that's essentially it for the whole vocal chain. I did want to mention that if you're not doing an OTT, you can do just a Ableton saturator on whatever preset you would like, and then make sure that if you do give it some drive, you do take it back to just keep your vocal as even as possible. And then you can adjust the dry wet as you want. Sometimes if I do this and I want just I guess we'll say quick saturation, I'll put it on a hard curve and essentially just like turn it down so it's just a little bit. Usually I'd never go anything above 10%. I find 7 to 4% to be the sweet spot, and we'll just leave it there. And if I find it's increasing the vocal quite a bit, I might duck this like 0.5 and just boost it here by 1. Or I say 1.5 to 2, sorry. So that's if you don't want to use an OTT. That's what I'd recommend. And then from there, this was more of a taste thing again with the instrumental. I shaved off a little more of the bottom here in the end. Again, just for my song, I thought it sounded good.
Look into my truth, transform and turn into my own Medusa. To conclude a lucid proof of moving through my life. Look into my truth, transform.
It's because of the song itself was a little more of a lo-fi song, so I wanted to give it some of that in the vocal. After this, what I like to do is the reverb. So if we solo the reverb, this is what it sounds like. And you might be wondering why it sounds like that. It's because I created a return track, or a send track, as some may call it, and I'm sending the vocal group to it. But this is Though the reason why is because you can control more of the reverb this way, I feel. And sometimes though I feel like you can control more of the vocal this way, so that's why I did it. And here, what I did was added the reverb. Yeah, I did these to taste, and then to not muddy up the vocal, we added an EQ after to take out a lot of the lows of the vocal, and then I added a bit of a dip to the highs here because we don't want to introduce more sibilance, more S's to the vocal after. And then after that, what we did was we bled the send track back into the vocal from 0. So if we listen to just the vocal,
Look into my truth, transform and turn into my own Medusa to conclude a lucid proof of moving through my life. Look into my truth, transform and turn into my own Medusa to conclude a lucid proof of moving through my life. Look into my truth, transform and turn into my own Medusa to conclude a lucid proof of moving through my life. Look into my truth, transform.
So we bled it back in. And then after this, the last thing I like to do is some parallel compression. Now in this case, I'm just doing it on the entire track. You can do this however you want. There's a lot of discussion amongst parallel compression on how you do it. In this case, I just did it to the whole track, and I'm just absolutely slamming it.
Look into my truth, transform and turn into my own Medusa to conclude a lucid proof of moving through.
I mean, I say that, but essentially just getting minus 10 dB of compression consistently, very fast attack, and then a slightly slower release just so it stays on the entire track, or the vocal. In this case, you can parallel compress your vocals separately.
Look into my truth, transform and turn into my...
This is without it.
Look into my truth, transform and turn into my own Medusa.
And I'm just going to bypass it back and forth as we listen. But this is off to start.
Look into my truth, transform and turn into my own Medusa to conclude a lucid proof of moving through my life. Look into my truth.
It really just adds a nice floor and body to everything. So yeah, parallel compression would be my last thing. And then if you'd like, in another video, we can go over stacks, so your ad-libs and just stacks under the whole vocal. And then also, just as a quick tip, I would also recommend doing other takes of your main vocal, and you can EQ them essentially the same and mix them essentially the same as we did the main vocal, though I wouldn't recommend just duplicating your main vocal twice and then throwing it left and right. You'll get some weird issues. It just won't sound very great, so I'd recommend doing 2 separate takes that are essentially in the exact same register, cadence, everything. So you're just doubling this and doing an actual second take and then throwing it completely left and completely right, and it really widens your vocal and makes it sound a lot better. So this is what we get without that.
Look into my truth, transform and turn into my own Medusa.
And this is with, and again, we kind of bleed it in just to taste. So this is what we get.
Look into my truth, transform and turn into my own Medusa to conclude a lucid proof of moving through my life. Look into my truth.
So I'm just going to bypass it back and forth so you guys can really hear.
Look into my truth, transform and turn into my own Medusa to conclude a lucid proof of moving through my life. Look into...
And there we go. That's how to mix your vocals. If you guys would like to listen to this song, it is out on all streaming platforms. My artist name is Kai the Angel, and the song is called Receipts. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you in the next video. Be sure to drop a like, follow, comment on what you'd like to see, or any other feedback or anything you'd like to give myself, or even others who will be viewing the video. If you have any other tips, tricks that you would like to add, please feel free. Want to create a community where we can all come together and really just take each other's advice and just all benefit as a group. So once again, thank you, and hope to see you in the next one.